the gold standard. In the world of strength training, that phrase usually points to one thing, the 1RM.
The one repetition maximum.
It's the king of data points. It tells you exactly how strong you are, right down to the pound. But let's be honest, anyone who's ever tested a true 1RM knows the king is a bit of a tyrant.
Oh, it's brutal. It just fries your central nervous system. It takes forever to set up. And honestly, the injury risk is non-zero.
It is.
You can't just walk in and max out every Tuesday to see where you stand.
Which creates this massive blind spot. I mean, if I don't know my max for today, how do I know what percentage of it to lift?
Exactly.
And that is the problem we are tackling today. We're looking for a kind of mathematical cheat code, a way to find your max without actually, lifting it. We are diving deep into a paper titled Monitoring Resistance Training Intensity Using Load-Intercept from the Load-Velocity Relationship Variables, the Case of Deadlift.
And this is fresh research. It's pretty much hot off the press. It was published in the Journal of Sport Science and Medicine, that's volume 25, pages 282 to 290, just back in March of 2026.
Wow.
The research team was led by Zhaoqian Li, along with Qingzhou Chang, Zongwei Chen, Litong Yang, Xing, Ruixuan Li, and Hongzhen Zhang.
And the mission here is, well, it's pretty bold. They want to see if we can use the speed of your warm-up set,
Your lighter weights.
To predict your absolute limit so you never have to grind out that one crushing max effort rep again.
Right. They're looking at a very specific variable called the Load-Intercept, or $. The whole goal is to see if this can replace the 1RM for prescribing intensity.
Okay, so before we get into the math of $, let's set the stakes. Why do we even need this? Most programs just say lift 80% of your max.
Yeah.
If I tested my max last month and it was 400 pounds, why can't I just use that number? Why complicate things with velocity?
Because you aren't a spreadsheet. You're a biological organism. The you that tested that max last month might have been well-rested, perfectly fed, and stress-free. The you in the gym today, you might have slept 4 hours, skipped breakfast, and be totally stressed about a deadline. Your true max fluctuates daily.
So if I base today's workout on last month's test, I might be just crushing myself without realizing it. Or, on the flip side, I might be undertraining if I've gotten stronger.
Exactly. And that's why sports scientists are so obsessed with velocity-based training, or VBT.
Right.
The core principle is the load-velocity relationship. It's an almost perfect linear relationship. As the weight on the bar goes up, the speed of the lift goes down.
My part's intuitive, 135 flies up, 400 pounds moves like molasses.
Right. And because it's a straight line on a graph, you can use regression analysis. You can plot a few points with lighter weights and just draw a line through them to predict what happens at the heavy end.
And that brings us to the core concept of this paper.
The Load-Intercept, or $.
Okay, help us visualize this. I'm picturing a graph. What is $. actually representing on there?
Okay, so imagine plotting velocity on the vertical axis and the load on the horizontal axis. You do a few lifts, you mark the dots on the graph, you draw a line through them.
Got it.
Now you extend that line all the way down and to the right until it hits that horizontal axis. That's the point where velocity would equal 0.
So dollars is the theoretical weight that is so heavy I physically cannot move it at all. It's the absolute ceiling of my strength.
Theoretically, yes. And the hypothesis of this study was that this $. Value, which you can calculate purely from submaximal non-fatiguing lifts, could serve as a reliable proxy for your 1RM.
If it works, you get all the data with none of the burnout.
Exactly.
That sounds like the holy grail for coaches. But I'm always a little skeptical of theoretical strength. We need to see if it holds up in the real world. So who did they test this on?
They kept it rigorous. They recruited 30 well-trained athletes, 15 men and 15 women. And to even get in the door, they had to have a verified deadlift 1RM of at least 1.5 times their body weight.
So these people really know how to pull. That's important because bad technique would probably mess up the velocity numbers, right?
It would ruin the data completely. That's why they focused specifically on the conventional deadlift, and they made sure the technique was strict full extension of hips and knees. They brought these athletes in for 2 experimental sessions, separated by 3 to 7 days, and in each session, they did an incremental load test.
Oh, okay, walk us through that. How did they actually generate the data?
So the athletes lifted loads at 40%, 60%, 70, 80, and 90% of their established 1RM.
And the instruction is key here. You can't just go through the motions.
No, absolutely not. You have to lift every single rep at maximal intended velocity. You have to try to rip that bar off the floor, even if it feels light.
If you sandbag the speed, the whole thing falls apart.
The prediction fails completely.
Yeah.
They measured that speed, with a gym-aware device, which is a linear position transducer. It's basically the gold standard for velocity tracking in research.
But here's the part that makes me wince. To prove the math works, they couldn't just do the speed sets. They had to compare it to the real thing.
Unfortunately for the participants, yes. After doing all that speed work up to 90%, they still had to perform an actual grinding 1RM test. That actual 1RM is the benchmark. It's the truth that the calculation gets judged against.
Brutal, but necessary.
Okay.
So let's get into the results. The first hurdle has to be reliability. If I calculate my L-dollars on Tuesday and then again on Friday, does that number hold steady, or is it jumping all over the place?
It holds steady, but there is a little bit of nuance here. The statistics showed that L-dollars has acceptable reliability.
Okay.
The coefficient of variation, which is basically the wobble in the data, was just under 5%, specifically 4.98%. The intra-class correlation coefficient was 0.974, which is very, very high.
Acceptable sounds good, but maybe not great. How did it compare to the reliability of the actual 1RM?
And that's the interesting part. The actual 1RM was slightly more reliable with the variation of only about 3.5%.
Wait, hold on. I would have thought the calculation, which removes the human error of a max effort struggle, I would have thought it would be cleaner. Why is the actual max more stable than the math?
It really comes down to the sensitivity of the linear regression. Remember, $L is a projection. It's derived from the slope of the line that's created by those lighter weights.
Okay.
So if you're just slightly unfocused on your 40% set, maybe you blink, your grip shifts a tiny bit. Your velocity drops by a fraction of a meter per second.
And that tiny drop changes the angle of the whole line.
Exactly. And when you extend that line way out to the heavy weights, that tiny error at the start gets magnified significantly by the time you reach the intercept.
I see. It's like navigation. If a ship is 1 degree off course leaving the harbor, by the time it crosses the Atlantic, it misses its destination by 100 miles.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because L-dollars is a projection, it's hypersensitive to the quality of those warm-up reps.
Okay.
However, they found something else that was incredibly stable. The ratio between the actual 1RM and the calculated L-dollars.
What does that mean for the lifter?
It means that while L-dollars and 1RM aren't the exact same number, L-dollars is usually a little bit higher. The distance or the relationship between them is consistent for you as an individual.
So they move in lockstep.
The ratio had a coefficient of variation of about 6.4%. So if your calculated L-dollars goes up by 10 pounds, you can be almost certain your actual 1RM has gone up by a proportional amount. It tracks perfectly.
Okay, so it tracks progress. That's really useful. But now for the big practical question, validity. Can I use this number to actually put weight on the bar? If L-dollar tells me I should lift 300 pounds today, is that accurate?
This is where the study gave us a split verdict, and this is probably the most important takeaway for anyone who wants to use this method. It depends entirely on how heavy you are lifting.
All right, give us the breakdown. Where does it work?
In the high-intensity zone. So loads above 80% of your max, or above 65% of $, the prediction was excellent. The error was tiny, around 4%.
So for my heavy working sets, my triples, my doubles, the math actually works.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
When they tried to use L-dollars to predict speeds for the low-intensity zone, so weights between 40 and 70%, the model failed.
It failed?
Yeah, the error rate spiked significantly, going over 6.3%.
That feels counterintuitive to me. We built the model using those lighter weights. Why is it worse at predicting them? You'd think it would be more accurate where we have the most data points.
It's a matter of anchors and leverage. Think about that graph again. Your 1RM and your L-dollar are both points at the extreme heavy end of the graph.
Okay.
When you're lifting heavy, say 80% or more, you're mathematically very close to those anchors. You're close to the target.
Right. The data points are clustered near the intercept.
But when you drop down to 40%, you're moving way far away from that anchor point. You're sliding back down that regression line.
I see.
And the issue is that the linear relationship in human biology isn't perfectly straight. There's always a little bit of curvature, a little noise. The further you get from the max, from that anchor, the more the prediction drifts from reality.
So the closer you are to the limit, the more accurate the prediction of the limit is.
Precisely. So the practical rule is simple. Do not use L-dollar zillers to prescribe your warm-ups or your speed work. It's just not accurate enough at those low loads. But for prescribing your heavy training, it's spot on.
That's a clear directive. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Why should a listener bother with all this? I mean, it sounds like a lot of math just to lift a barbell. What is the practical advantage here?
It's all about autoregulation. That's the key word. Imagine you walk into the gym feeling like trash. You didn't sleep well, work was stressful.
Which, let's be honest, is a standard day for most of us.
Right. Now, if you follow a static spreadsheet, it tells you to hit 405 pounds because that's what the program says. You try it, your form breaks, maybe you tweak your back because your nervous system just isn't firing.
Because the spreadsheet doesn't know I'm tired. It doesn't know I skipped lunch.
Exactly. But with this method, you do your warm-up sets. The velocity sensor picks up that you're moving, say, 0.05 meters per second, slower than usual. The software instantly recalculates your $L for this specific moment in time.
And since I'm moving slower, the $L value drops.
Correct. The $L drops, and the software automatically lowers your prescribed working weights for this session. So instead of 405, maybe it tells you to hit 385.
I still get the right stimulus.
You get the optimal training stimulus for your body's current state without ever having to fail a lift or just guess.
So the workout adjusts to me instead of me breaking myself to fit the workout.
Yes. It takes the ego out of it. It's just data. And conversely, if you walk in feeling amazing and the bar is flying, the L goes up and the weight on the bar goes up, you catch the good days and you capitalize on them.
That safety factor is huge. You're getting max effort insights without the max effort risk. I also noticed the study had an even split of men and women. Did the math favor one group?
That was a very positive finding. The relationships held true for both sexes. The goodness of fit, so how well the data matched the line, was around 0.98 for everyone.
Wow.
So this isn't just a male athlete protocol. It works across the board.
That's great to see. But we have to address the limitations. Is there any reason I shouldn't go buy a velocity transducer right now? What are the blind spots here?
Well, first, look in the mirror. These were well-trained athletes. They had consistent technique. If you're a beginner and your deadlift form looks different on every single rep,
If your hips shoot up early on one rep and not the next,
your velocity data is going to be garbage. The math relies on mechanical consistency.
garbage in, garbage out. So master the movement before you try to hack it.
100%.
Okay.
Second, this is specific to the deadlift. We can assume it works for squats or bench press because the VBT is common there, but the biomechanics are different.
Right.
The range of motion differs. We have to be careful generalizing the specific load-intercept accuracy to every lift without more data.
And we're still kind of revolving around the 1RM, aren't we? The study used the 1RM to prove that the $L works.
We are. The 1RM was the truth in this study. We haven't escaped it. We've just found a way to orbit it safely. And remember what we said about reliability. The calculated $L is slightly less reliable than a true max. You are trading a small amount of precision for a massive amount of safety and energy conservation.
That is a trade I will take 7 days a week. I'd rather be 4% off and healthy than 100% accurate and icing my lower back for a week.
I could not agree more. And if you look at the charts in the paper, specifically Figure 1 and Figure 3,
Right.
you can see how tight those regression lines really are at the heavyweights. It's compelling stuff.
So let's summarize the playbook for the listener. If they want to apply this, what do they actually do?
First, you need a way to measure velocity. If you have that, use an incremental load test, maybe 40, 60, 80% as your warm-up. Use that data to calculate your UNRWA. Then, use that $L to monitor intensity for your heavy sets. Do not use it to program your warm-ups. And most importantly, use it to auto-regulate. Let the numbers dictate the load, not your ego.
That is the summary. But before we go, you mentioned something earlier about the ratio being stable. I want to circle back to that.
Yes. We talked about that ratio, the distance between your calculated $L, the intercept, and your actual strength, the 1RM.
Right.
That ratio was incredibly stable for each person, regardless of how strong they were. It's almost like a neurological fingerprint.
A fingerprint of strength.
Exactly. And if that fingerprint is unique and stable to you, it opens up a fascinating possibility. Could we reach a point where we map an athlete's profile just once and then never need them to max out again?
Wow.
Could a simple warm-up set eventually tell us everything we need to know about an athlete's potential for that day, that year, or even their career? We aren't there yet, but this paper is a huge step toward a future where we measure strength without ever having to test it.
That's a cool concept. The end of the max out era.
It would certainly change the energy in powerlifting gyms.
No more nosebleeds and ammonia salts, just silent calculation. I love it. Listen, we just skimmed the surface of the statistics here. If you want to see the bland Altman plots and really geek out on the data, you have to check out the full article.
Yeah, the title again is Monitoring Resistance Training Intensity, Using Load-Intercept from the Load-Velocity Relationship Variables, the Case of Deadlift, in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Please remember to follow this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into the science of performance. We've got more studies coming down the pipeline that you won't want to miss. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.